Welcome to Dr. Russ Air Rifle Adventures. Have you ever seen this rifle before? A little different. It is a daisy, but it doesn't cost like a daisy, and it's used in a very constructive manner. I'll share that in a minute. Today is another one of our Are You a Great Air Gunner? I've always felt that you're not a great plumber, carpenter, or anything else unless you're a good person to begin with. And trying to be better today than I was yesterday. It's a struggle. But as I head towards retirement here, not from you, from all my jobs, I wanted to share as many lessons that I've learned in life, and that's what's coming. Let me just say something about the air gun videos that are to come. I don't know if you can see his name right down here, but Joe Murphin is the vice president of Daisy, and he became the director for the Daisy Museum, and he wrote this book. I'm going to read it. Secondly, touring through the museum, and there aren't too many guns, if any, beside Daisy that actually has a museum. But Daisy has a good one, and Joe Murphin runs it well. And he told me the story about this rifle. I had to buy one. There's a little concession at the end of the museum, which you can buy some air guns. You can buy some refurbs for $20. You can buy all kinds of things, and that was good. And everybody gets a medallion for going through. Do you see that target right there? That's the smallest target I've ever seen. And yet this is the actual size target that almost 1 million young boys use this gun to hit bullseyes on this target. Let me say it again, 1 million each year. Daisy kind of sponsors or supervises these things through a variety of clubs from New York to Florida to California. And then they sell over 1 million air guns a year. Wow. So, thank God for Daisy. They're the ones who got us on this trail, if you will, of enjoying air guns today, whether it be break barrels or springers or powder guns. Well, let's share a few of my lessons with you. Some of you have written in saying you actually enjoy some humor that I share at the beginning of my videos, particularly when it involves small kids. Perhaps you'll remember Art Linklater had a famous show way back where he interviewed kids, and that show was called Kids Say the Darndest Things. There was a young girl named Lauren, true story, and she was asked to share some wisdom with the teacher, and the teacher said that she said, "Don't use a permanent magic marker when you put on lipstick. It really makes your mother mad." Good advice, I think. Well, let's get into sharing some things with you. I've already shared how this is Daisy's. These don't shoot at 350 feet a second. They shoot at 600 feet a second. I'll do a good, accurate review on this and a couple of other guns that I bought while I was there. But I was actually given a gift. I don't look for gifts. I actually usually take a couple of gifts with me. But Joe Murphin wanted me to have this little pouch of ammo. Now I have about 10 million rounds of air gun ammunition. Well, why is this so important? Well, look at that word right there. Match grade. This is the BB's match grade out of this match grade rifle. And this is one of 6 or 7 trail cams I have around the house. And I'm watching for the paths of destructive critters. But I have these out 12 months of the year. Destructive critters are open season 12 months of the year. But cameras like this can also pick up anything about human critters that are out sneaking around your house too. One day I'll do a video on that, but I've got pictures of both. Rather interesting. Well, let me share some experiences. Forgive my notes, but like I said, I've been traveling for the last month, and I think altogether we did about 7 or 8 videos. A number of you are going to get married, and half of you are going to get married again. So I thought I would just share a couple of notes, because that can be very distracting if you get the wrong spouse and you go through a divorce. It can be distracting to being a really good person and being a good air gunner. We often focus on the purpose. What is that woman supposed to do next to me? Some say, I want her to be a trophy wife. I want her to have a certain shape. I want her to have to be very romantic around the house. That's not necessarily what women look for when they're looking for you. I raised 4 girls, and I can tell you that they played with those little dolls and doll houses constantly. And they watched mom and dad constantly. And what they want to do is make a great house. One that the rest of their sisters or friends, other family members will envy this beautiful homemaker and what she's done. So you've got 2 different chains of thought there, and you've got to keep them in mind when you start looking for a spouse. Since we have those 2 different outlooks, that probably explains why we have a 50% divorce rate. Another reason we have it is that our schools just don't teach the basics of being a good husband, a good wife. And then we end up, the geography gets all changed around by the time we get old, and some arithmetic gets changed too. So I wish schools would teach us a little bit more. Instead of making this very special person your spouse, I think whether you're male or female, what you want is somebody who's a problem solver. Let me say it again, a problem solver. Because I promise you, life is about solving problems. And there are people who just don't know how to solve problems. A friend of mine came and he said, Russ, my wife, he'd lost her, she died in a yoga class of all things. And he said, how did you find Dr. Paula? And I said, well, let me give you a tip. I said, you often tell me about this cabin you have up north on the lake and how you have a neighbor who's a problem. And you've told me that story a couple times. Tell it to one of these women that you're dating. And if she comes back and says, well, let me make a pie or a cake, or let's go over and have one more good discussion with him, I'm sure we can turn him around. That gal is probably a problem solver. If she says, oh boy, I've got an attorney for you, I don't think she's a problem solver. And you might want to avoid dating that lady any further. Another thing I think that's important in any relationship with a spouse, with just a good friend, learn to be a listener. One of the things that's good about listening, whether it be to the spouse, people at work, church, whatever, is that when you listen, and I know you want to talk, I did, but when you listen, an interesting thing happens. You let them get it all out. Sometimes that's really all they needed to do, and sometimes they put information on the table that you didn't know. So you're changing what you're going to say anyway. So I've learned to be a good listener. And then I talk. Practicing that silence. Now let me also share some things with you about hunting. Animals, all animals are olfactory. That means they store everything in their brain by smells. I don't care if they're a deer, a wild boar, an iguana, it's the smell. Our Dobermans, when we come home and say, "Hey Mercy, come here," they'll come up in a casual way, the back little tail is going like this. But until their nose hits my pants or my hand, that's when that tail starts going like this. That's when they get the smell that they were looking for. The FBI would call it a fingerprint, I call it a nose print. Well, in understanding that, it tells you how important it is when you're hunting, that you have an idea of where the wind is now, and where it's going to be this afternoon, and have some places to hunt from because of the wind. And be very, 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 very aware of that. I've often talked about how on the chest of a deer, an elk, a bear, put a basketball and just hit that basketball. Some people want to say, well, is the heart in the middle? Is the lungs here? Oh, shall I break a shoulder bone? What should I do? Just hit the basketball. When you hit the basketball, if it's the right bullet, it'll tear up those organs. You'll follow a blood trail that has a lot of air bubbles in it, and you'll harvest your game. So when you're hunting, remember the basketball. Secondly, and by the way, that bullseye, that basketball, it can be even the back butt of an animal. The Texas heart shot is another thing I've talked about. Sometimes that animal just wants to get out of the area, and you can put that basketball right on his rump, and you can shoot right at that rump. 9 times out of 10, your bullet pellet is going to go right up the rib cage and still hit through soft organs and still hit the heart, the lungs, and allow you to harvest what a moment earlier was a trophy that was looking right at you. Let me share one more piece of wisdom as it comes to a spouse. The wisdom is this: burn the candles, use your nicest sheets, wear the fanciest lingerie. Don't save it for a special occasion. Today is special. Today is special. Lastly, if you haven't ordered something from us, cap, shirt, you might want to, because when you order from us, you get some stickers and you get this 75 deal breakers. And this is the only way to purchase your next air gun smart. Not me, you want to rate which of these deal breakers is your deal breakers when you purchase anything, but in this case, an air gun. For example, one of my deal breakers is a barrel that's 20 inches long. My fingers here are about 9.5. So when you use 9.5 and 9.5, that's 18 inches. This barrel is 3 or 4 inches longer than 18. No wonder Daisy uses this for their competitiveness. And when you shoot, you want good rifling. And that's what happens in 20 inches plus, is like a football. It's spinning, and you know that you can throw a football spinning far more accurately, far more farther than you can if you just lob the football. Well, I hope you enjoyed today. If so, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, and I think 14,500 of you have, subscribe. You'll get our next video, and we've got some really good videos from this 30-day trip that I took for wild hog, Zach Matthews wild hog, iguanas. We've got some good videos coming. you'll want to see them, subscribe.